Name. I'm Dr. Nurunisa from DIMC, Assistant Professor Pediatrics. Um, Today, we are dealing with the examination of precordium with the relevant journal physical examination. Yes. So we started. Basically, as the physical examination, systemic physical examination, after taking a good history, good physical general physical as well as the systemic examination make you have very helpful in making the differential diagnosis. Just like that, cardiac examination, in case we are suspecting some cardiac issues in any child, after taking their history, good cardiology, good precordial examination along with the relevant general physical examination is very helpful in making the differential diagnosis in peds. So before starting the examination, but you have to know, you have a good background knowledge regarding cardiac physiology, auscultation techniques, and different maneuvers. Okay. So physical examination, start with the general physical examination as well as of the general look of the child with hemodynamic status. In pediatric age group, cardiac examination is much more difficult in infants and children who are not cooperative. Otherwise, findings are easy to hear, like in auscultation in a cooperative young children and adolescent than in adults. But uncooperative infant or children, now it is very difficult to to do the precordial examination. The general examination guideline is very important in cardiac examination. For examination, that includes inspection, palpation, percussion, and auscultation. For auscultation, you have to know you have your personal stethoscope. That stethoscope should have a separate bell and diaphragm, because auscultation is a major part of cardiac examination with separate bell and diaphragm. And that because with the bell, it allows to auscultate all the frequencies of the sounds, but with the diaphragm we easily hear the middle and high frequency sounds, and it attenuates the low pitch sounds. And bell should be placed lightly, whereas diaphragm should be of appropriate size according to the size of the child. For the adolescent, you need a normal adult stethoscope, but for the for the pediatric age less than 5 years, you should have a pediatric stethoscope that have small diaphragm that gets fit on the chest of the patient. And the tube of the stethoscope should be short, about 16 to 18 inches, because it helps in auscultation. Earpiece should be comfortable and a snug. And examination of precordial examination or CVS examination start with the inspection of precordial region. So for before starting inspection, you have to take consent from the parents of the child, or directly if the patient is more than 5 years, 6 years old, you can also take consent directly from the patient. And you have to introduce yourself to the patient and start inspection. For inspection, you have to know what is the good exposure. For exposure in young children, you can put off the shirt. You have a good clear exposure of the precordial region of the chest, and it includes the cardio. Is first of all, on inspection you have to assess for the asymmetry. If there is any asymmetry of the precordial region, that is precordial is bulged, it indicates that this child may have right ventricular enlargement. Okay. And increase epidam, likewise, if the shape of the chest is not normal shape of the chest is the barrel shape, but if the AP diameter is much more, then it indicates what? It indicates hyperinflation or dropping of the chronic air trapping. And on further inspection, you have to look for the chest deformities, like presence of pectus excavatum, for the presence of any kyphoscoliosis or spine deformities that is very common with cardiopulmonary diseases. And you have to look for further any scar mark, for pigmentation, for any visible veins over the precordial region. You have to look for any abnormal uh, absence of muscles like for the Poland anomaly in which pectoralis major or minor muscles is absence. You have to look for the Harrison sulcus. Harrison sulcus is usually present at the lower end of the rib cage, at the attachment of the diaphragm. And Harrison sulcus is usually present in those cases, those children who have rickets. Harrison sulcus indicates what? It's a sign of rickets. You have to look for any abnormal pulsations that may be present in case if there is a large shunt was there, or in case of mitral regurgitation or aortic insufficiency. So you have to do a very good inspection of the chest, and then you have the important part is you have to look for the apical impulse or apex beat, inspection of the apex beat. Normally, it is the apex beat or apical impulse is visualized. It indicates what it shows the ventricular size or thickness. Normally, apex beat is distinct and it is located at fourth intercostal space, just medial to the midclavicular line. It indicates it shows the size. It shows apex beat shows the size of the ventricle, and normally it is a distinct pulse that is located normally at fourth intercostal space, just medial to the midclavicular line. But if it is abnormal apex beats, when it becomes hyperdynamic, then the impulses looks hyperdynamic. But if that hyperdynamic impulse is at the normal location, at clavicular line, it indicates what? It indicates increased cardiac output, or which it also indicate present in case of left ventricular hypertrophy. Same position at fourth intercostal is not displaced, but it is the impulse is more hyperdynamic. But if the impulse is hyperdynamic as well as it is shifted downward or towards the left side, that it crossed the midclavicular line, it indicates what? It indicates left ventricular enlargement. And if it is indistinct, that is it's not clearly visible at the side, it is diffusely visible, and it is shifted towards downward, and then it is associated with right ventricular hypertrophy. Precordial heave. What is precordial heave? Heave is basically the movement of the part of the precordium. That is, we usually look at the left external border, and is seen in case of right ventricular enlargement. This is the inspection of precordial region. That includes, you have to look for any asymmetry, you have to look for pulsation, any pigmentation, any scar mark, any visible veins, and finally important is that you have to look for any heave, and you have to inspect the apex beat also. Then you go for palpation. Palpation is not always helpful, but the important part of palpation of precordial examination is to palpate for the apex beat, and you have to do the heave. You have to palpate for the pericordial heave. What do you mean? Right ventricular impulse, it usually feels at the left external border. Heave is usually located at the left external border, and heave, right ventricular heave, that is the paraexternal tap. What is tap? It appears sharply localized, sharply localized. It's quickly rising. That if this right ventricular impulse is discrete, sharply localized, and quickly rising, it indicates right ventricular hypertrophy. But if the impulse of right ventricular enlargement in hypertrophy, it is a tapping line. It's like a tap, paraexternal tap. But if there is right ventricular hypertrophy along with right ventricular enlargement, then the periexternal lift is there, and that lift is a diffuse, gradually rising lift. That is called the paraexternal heave. That is the difference. If it is sharply go, quick raising, and localized sharply, it indicates right ventricular hypertrophy. But if the periexternal lift is diffuse, gradually raising, it indicates right ventricular enlargement with or without right ventricular hypertrophy. Then you have to palpate the apex beat. How you palpate the apex beat? Normally, it is found with the fingertip. In a normal patient, when patient is in upright position, you have to palpate it with the finger. You have to localize it. It usually localize it where it is localized, and you have to relate it to the mid clavicular line or anterior axillary line. Okay, so it is normally look at apex beat. We say that the apex beat the most outermost and lowermost impulse at the pericardial rhythm is the apex beat, and you have to localize it, and it is normally localized at mid clavicle. That's just lateral to just medial to mid clavicle. At fourth intercostal space, just medial to mid clavicular line. And how you calculate the fourth intercostal space? First, you have to palpate the angle of Lois, that is at the second intercostal space, and then you count the intercostal space. Fourth intercostal space usually we found apex beat at the fourth intercostal space, just medial to mid clavicular line. And how you can say that what is where you say that is the mid clavicular line, then you have to measure the clavicle from the acromion process up to the sternocleidomastoid joint. Mid of that is the mid clavicular line. So normal apex beat is at the just medial to the mid clavicular line at fourth intercostal space. But if the apex beat is abnormal, when you say it is abnormal, when it is displayed later, when it is displaced from the normal side, strong impulse is when you palpate the apex beat, if it is sharply goes up and down, it's a strong impulse. You feel at your fingertip. It indicates what? It indicates increased cardiac output abnormality or left ventricular hypertrophy. And in case of left ventricular enlargement, usually the apex beat is displaced leftward. Maybe if the left ventricle is enlarged markedly, you may find apex beat at the anterior axillary line. So you have to palpate the apex beat, and whether it is normal or it is abnormal. If apex beat is of a strong impulse, it indicates only but it is in a normal position, that is at the fourth intercostal space, but it is stepping. You feel the strong impulse. It indicates left ventricular hypertrophy without enlargement. But if the apex beat is displayed towards the left side with a tapping beat, it indicates left ventricular enlargement. Then you have to palpate for thrill. Thrill is the palpable murmur. So palpable loud murmur is a thrill. You have to, for the palpation of the thrill, you have to place your hand over the precordial region. Usually it's found in the precordial, suprasternal, or carotid artery area. If the thrill is due to the anastomosis of the vessels, it is usually found in the suprasternal region or carotid artery area. But the thrill due to cardiac murmur, due to valvular involvement, the thrill usually palpate the thrill easily at the precordial region. If it is low intensity, probably usually thrill is not of low intensity. If it is of low intensity, it's just a pulsation. It's not a thrill. Thrill is basically a purpuring sensation. You palpate when you feel the purpuring sensation when you place the hand over the precordial region. That is the thrill. So palpation of precordial region involves the right ventricular impulse, parasternal, that is the parasternal. You have to palpate for the parasternal heave. You have to look for the right ventricular impulse. You have to look for you have to palpate for the apex beat. And finally, you have to palpate thrill if it is present. That includes the palpation of the precordial region. Percussion is not important, is not significant in case of precordial or CVS examination. Usually previously we do the palpate for the cardiac portion, but it is not very important. But percussion is important in case if there is pulmonary involvement, pulmonary disease along with the cardiac involvement, then the percussion is important to detect the presence of fibrosis or consolidation. But if you want to do only the precordial examination, percussion is not significant. After inspection, palpation, then you directly go for auscultation. Auscultation is the most significant part, but the most difficult, and you need a very high concentration for auscultation of the CVM, cardiac auscultation at the pericardial region. Way to listen. There is in pericardial examination for auscultation, we have the areas. Particularly, the most important areas are the four important areas where you have to auscultate. Definitely, so it's a very important to auscultate in all these four areas along with the other areas also. The four important areas include the apex area that is at the fourth intercostal space, fifth or fourth intercostal space just medial to the midclavicular line. That is the mitral area. That is at the side of the apex beat. Usually it is at the fourth intercostal space just medial to the midclavicular line, or sometimes at the fifth intercostal space. That is called the mitral area. Second is that is the same fourth intercostal space but at the left lower sternal border. That is called the tricuspid area. Third is the aortic area. Aortic area, where aortic area is located, it is at the second intercostal space, just right at the right sternal border, second intercostal space. And the fourth one important is the pulmonary area. Pulmonary area is located at the same second intercostal space but at the left sternal border. So four important areas are the pulmonary area, second intercostal space, left sternal border, aortic area, second intercostal space, right sternal border. Mitral area is at the side of the apex beat, that is at the fourth intercostal space, just medial to the midclavicular line. And finally, the tricuspid area, that is at the left lower sternal border at fourth intercostal space. Other area, along with this, these are the four. You have important is these four important auscultation you have to make over these four areas. Along with this, you have to auscultate for the bruise. For in case of large anastomosis or shunt, you may hurt bruise, and you have to, for auscultation of the bruise, you have to auscultate over the right and left infraclavicular areas, anterior axilla. You have to auscultate at the left interior axillary line, right and left axilla, right and left interscapular areas at the back. That is usually present in case of aortic collaterals or pulmonary collaterals when developed in case of any of the congenital heart diseases. So you have to auscultate at the back also, at the interscapular area. Then you have to also listen at the lungs. You have to you have to listen for what? Crepitations. Fine crepitations in case of congestive cardiac failure. You have to listen for the bruit at the cranium, at the temple region, for the bruise. Presentation of these are usually present in case of the large aneurysm in the brain. You have to listen for the bruit at the liver. You have to listen for the bruit at the abdominal area, for renal bruit at the lumbar area, and you can also listen at the side of the femoral artery if aneurysm is there. But important for auscultation are these four areas: mitral area, tricuspid area, pulmonary and aortic areas. Okay, important is it. How to listen? When you auscultate the chest, you have to do systemic auscultation. Okay, you have to listen systemically. First, you have to auscultate for the heart sounds, normal heart sounds S1 and S2. And you also have to oscillate for other heart sounds like the S3 and S4, but S1 and S2 is very important. Then you have to auscultate for any systolic sounds, murmurs, any other additional sounds, any other. You have to look at first. You have to look at systolic murmurs, and diastolic murmurs, systolic sounds, diastolic sounds, and other clicks. What is the lap dub? Normal heart sound is a lap dub. Lap dub is S1 and S2. These are the sounds that is produced when you auscultate over the heart. You heard like lap dub. Lap is the S1 and dub is S2. First heart sound is S1. That is produced by the how it produced? It is produced by the closure of the atrioventricular valve. When the atrioventricular valves close during the cardiac cycle, it produces a sound that is the normal first heart sound S1. And S1 is burst heard at the apex side, at the side of the apex beat. That is at the fourth intercostal space, medial to the midclavicular line, or it can also heard at the left lower sternal border. Often it sounds single until and unless the patient is in bradycardia. If it is split, heard better at the apex. It's a more low pitched, and it is a long as compared to the S2 sound. It's a low pitched sound, so you can easily add with the bell of the with the diaphragm of the stethoscope. Low pitch sound, and it is long. Timing is more, duration is more as compared to the S2. And how you differentiate S1 from S2? You can differentiate that this is S2 and this is S1 by comparing with the palpation of the carotid pulse. Usually S1 comes before and S2 comes after carotid upstroke. When you palpate the carotid pulse, the upstroke of the S1 comes before the upstroke, and S2 comes after the upstroke of the carotid artery. If you palpate so for differentiate that this is S1, S2, you have to palpate the carotid artery. S1 appears before the upstroke of the carotid artery, and S2 usually appears after the upstroke of the carotid artery. Second heart sound, that is S2, it is produced by this sound is produced by closure of the aortic and pulmonary valves. First heart sound is produced by closure of the AV valves, and second heart sound is produced by the closure of the aortic and pulmonary valves. Usually this is a splitting sound. That a normal slit is present, and this split varies with the respiration. S2 is best heard at left sternal border, or second left intercostal space. Best heard at the lower mid-sternal border, or it can heard at the second left intercostal space. This is a S1 is low pitch, but S2 is higher pitch sound, and it is better heard with the bell as compared to the S1. S1 is better heard with the diaphragm. And how you differentiate it? You can differentiate this is S1 by palpating the carotid artery. S2 splitting, the normal splitting is present normally. It is not much marked, but if the splitting is persistent during persistent expiratory splitting is there, then it indicates then it is abnormal. If you heard S2 and it is markedly splitting, particularly at expiratory phase, then it could be due to atrial septal defect. The most common differential diagnosis is the atrial septal defect. Other include mild valvular pulmonary stenosis or idiopathic dilation of the pulmonary artery. The more important you have to remember is the atrial septal defect, a right bundle branch, and widely fixed spreading is typical for ASD, atrial septal defect. In atrial septal defect, we found fixed splitting of S2. It usually normally present, but if it is fixed, more marked during expiration, it is the abnormal splitting, and it usually present in case of atrial septal defect. And wide splitting is also present in case of right bundle branch block. Single S2, if normally it should be splitting, but if you heard a single S2 with single and loud S2, it indicates what? It indicates transposition of great arteries, truncus arteriosus. Single loud P2, it indication of pulmonary hypertension. And single and soft P2, it indicates typical TOF. TOF may you can heard a single, not splitted, but a single S2. Okay, but a single P2 indicates pulmonary hypertension. Important is pulmonary hypertension. If you heard single P2 and it is loud, it indicates pulmonary hypertension. But if it is loud and single, it indicates transposition of great arteries. But loud A2, it indicates what? Aortic insufficiency or coarctation of the aorta. In case of coarctation of aorta or aortic insufficiency, you found a loud A2. So first you have to differentiate the two parts. S2 has two parts, pulmonary part and aortic part. Normally this is splitting. S2 is splitting for having pulmonary component and the aortic component. If you heard a single loud S2, it indicates pulmonary hypertension. But if you heard a single loud A2, it indicates aortic coarctation of aorta, aortic insufficiency. That's important. But if the splitting is there, but the splitting is fixed and more marked, the important to know is atrial septal defect. Fixed splitting is typically indicative of atrial septal defect. And then After S1, S2, then you have to heard for about extra heart sound. Extra heart sound includes S3. S3 is usually, it's a physiological sound that is usually present if the heart rate is, if the tachycardia is there, then you can also hear the S3. S3 is basically a low pitch sound that usually present. That is, this sound is
क्या
produced
कर रहा
by
है?
rapid filling of the ventricle in early diastole. Rapid filling of the ventricles in early time, that is a physiological sound. That is low pitch sound that is produced by rapid filling of the ventricle and early diastole. You can usually hear S3, or we can, when S3 is present, it is called the gallop rhythm. Usually it's present in case of the tachycardia, but it's physiological. Okay, best heard with patient supine or in left decubitus position. When you tilt the patient towards the left side, it is much, it's you best heard the
बोल बोल गया
S3, and it usually present
अभी
when S3 becomes more increased by exercise. If you put pressure over the abdominal wall, or if there is lifting of the legs, then S3 becomes more prominent. Okay, S4, it is nearly, or if you heard S4, it is always pathological. It can be present in normality, but in pediatric age group, if you heard S4, it is always pathological, and it is usually produced. It is usually produced by vibration of the stiff ventricle. When ventricle becomes stiff, particularly like in case of left ventricle hypertrophy or restrictive cardiomyopathy, then you can hear S4. It is produced due to vibration of the stiff ventricle. So better heard at the apex of left lower sternal border in the supine or left lateral decubitus position. Okay, so before you had about the murmur, you have to listen for the important is S1 and S2. If you heard additional sounds, particularly in case of tachycardia, that is S3. It is usually present, we can say the gallop rhythm. But if you heard S4, S4 is always pathological. So S4 is associated, is usually present in case of congestive cardiac failure, congestive heart failure, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, severe systemic hypertension, pulmonary hypertension, and myocarditis. Particularly important is the hypertrophic cardiomyopathy and congestive heart failure, or severe systemic hypertension that leads to left ventricle hypertrophy. You heard S4. So if you heard S4, it's always pathological. But S3 is usually present in, it's usually heard physiologically, particularly when the patient have raised intra-abdominal pressure, or they are doing exercise, having tachycardia. Other important S4 association is the tricuspid atresia, TAPVR, TAPS, is the presence of transposition of greater, or total anomalous pulmonary valence return, severe left ventricular disease, and Kawasaki's disease also. Click, click is basically, these are the additional sounds. This is usually clinical, is usually pathological. It is a high pitch sound usually heard in the early systole, and click is usually produced due to the vibration in the artery that is distal to some stenotic wall. If the aortic stenosis is there, you may, or pulmonary stenosis is there, you may heard a click, and it is due to the vibration in the artery that is present distally to that stenotic wall.
मैम ये सेशन थोड़ा यानी खत्म करना होगा क्योंकि हमारा दूसरा सेशन स्टार्ट होना है 10:15 पर.
ओके, ठीक है बेटा,
इसको थोड़ा बस एंड की तरफ ले जाएं.
ओके, इट्स ओके. So friction rub is basically present in the case of pericardial inflammation or pericarditis. It is usually the creaking sound that you can hear with the stethoscope. Murmur are important. So before closing here, we have to, important in auscultation, most important part of the auscultation is precordial auscultation is for the murmur. These are the sound usually it is produced by turbulence of blood in the heart, or due to turbulence blood stream. It can be benign, or it can be pathological. Murmurs are the leading cause of referral. Basically, usually the physician refers the patient to cardiologist if they heard the murmur. So, general description, you have to describe murmur in the phases of what is the timing, when it occurs in the systolic phase or diastolic phase, or what is the duration of that murmur. And the most important is the grading of the murmur. Grading of the murmur is from 1 to 6. 1 is, it is only heard by the specialist. It is only heard by the specialist. Grade 2 is heard, but when there is clear cut silence over there, you heard the murmur, that is the grade 2 murmur. Grade 3 murmur is heard with easily heard by any physician. Grade 4 is with thrill. Grade 5 you heard with harsh thrill, and with diaphragm does that is easily is placed over the precordial region. And grade 6, when you heard the thrill, when the diaphragm is half lifting over the precordial region, that is the grade 6. So you have to describe murmur on the basis of the timing of the murmur, duration of the murmur, grading of the murmur, characteristic of the murmur, and intensity of the murmur, and finally how whether the murmur is radiated or not. So, and you also know different maneuvers. These maneuvers are basically to increase the intensity of different murmur. We usually heard murmur when the patient was in supine, standing or sitting position. We can heard murmur in all the position. We usually do precordial examination in the supine position. Other physical maneuver is you can murmur by making a squatting position, because with the squatting position it increase the afterload of the heart, increase the stroke volume, then it reduces the murmur. When you heard the murmur and then you do maneuver of a skating position and the murmur becomes reduced in intensity, it indicates the murmur of aortic stenosis or hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. But if in skating position the sound of the murmur becomes more intense, it indicates what? It's a murmur of mitral regurgitation. So different maneuver is different positions. You can, after hearing the murmur, you make the squatting position. You can suddenly stand the patient. That is if the patient gets sudden raised from their bedside from a sitting position, it causes decrease afterload, decrease output, and it accentuate the murmur of mitral valve prolapse and hypertrophic obstructive cardiomyopathy. Important is you have to tell the position, the left lateral decubitus position or leaning forward. In this maneuver, apex of the heart falls towards the chest, and the murmur that is related to the mitral valve and aortic valve becomes more prominent. So you heard the murmur in the spine position, then you make different maneuvers, like you turn the patient towards the left side, or when the sitting position, ask the patient to lean forward. It makes the murmur that is related to mitral and aortic valve more prominent. So some innocent murmur we can left it. Other maneuvers is you can ask the patient to hold the breath in case of in and expiration, because with breath holding in and expiration in upright position or leaning forward, it makes the murmur more prominent. Deep breath, you ask the patient to hold upright and makes deep breath. Okay, these are the different maneuvers that make your murmurs more prominent, particularly that is related to the valve diseases. Other maneuvers is the Valsalva maneuver. It's not important, but the important maneuvers are skating position, left lateral decubitus position, and leaning forward, and ask the patient to hold the breath in and expiration and take deep breath. That accentuates your murmurs. So along with the precord, this is the whole of this is the precordial examination. Along with precordial examination, you have to do the related general physical examination that is related to your cardiac disease. That includes vital signs, particularly in the blood pressure and heart rate. In case of cardiovascular examination, then auscultation at the lungs. Auscultation of the lung in case of congestive cardiac failure, you may hear the fine crackles at the base of the base of the lungs. So you have to auscultate the lungs also, along with the precordial examination. And you have to also listen for the additional pulmonary sounds. Okay, so auscultation of the pulmonary auscultation is also important when you deal with the cardiovascular examination, that is relative examination. Edema, you have to look for the edema, particularly edema that is related to the CVS is usually present in the depending part in the lower limb, as compared to that is edema that is related to the liver and renal, that is particularly at the periorbital region. But edema that is related to the cardiac is usually present in the depending part of the body or at the back. So location periorbital normal, the edema that is due to the congestive cardiac failure is usually at the depending part, not at the periorbital region. And for a relative examination, CVS examination is palpation of the liver, because liver get enlarged in case of right congestive cardiac failure. So you have to palpate the liver also. In case of right congestive cardiac failure, liver becomes more soft, palpable, how much palpable, then you have to palpate the liver and indicates how much it is palpable according to the right costal margin. That is, it is below 2 to 3 centimeter or more than that. In case of right congestive cardiac, it becomes more soft. But in case of, and it becomes more pulsatile in case of tricuspid regurgitation. So liver palpation of the liver is part or relative part of the cardiovascular examination.
मैम खत्म करेंगे मीटिंग, असल में
चलो,
वो सेकंड टीचर जो है वो वेट कर रहे हैं.
ओके ओके.